Hey everyone, Will Brink here. Um, Topic of interest I think people might enjoy is I actually went to the Bryan Johnson Don't Die Summit. I'm assuming most people watching have at least heard of Bryan Johnson, but if not, quick background on Bryan Johnson. He's a tech, I think billionaire, if not millionaire, but he was a tech billionaire who has really taken in the last few years really focused on longevity and the science of longevity and anti-aging, and has really made a major business out of it. He's probably made escape velocity as far as getting attention in the mainstream because he's certainly not original in terms of what he's doing. I mean, people that have been around a lot longer than him, such as Bill Falloon, the owner of the Life Extension, scientists like Ray Kurzweil and so forth, have been in this space for a lot longer. And yours truly, to some degree, has been in this space longer. But he has taken it to a next level in terms of social media and branding and all that. Netflix did a show on him, pretty good show on him. So the name has gotten around a lot. His YouTube channel has quite a few followers, and again, definitely credit where it's due that he has really broken into, I would say, like the mainstream. He's become basically, I guess, like a longevity influencer. You know, he's I think he does well on TikTok, though I've never been to TikTok. But my understanding from what I saw is, like I say, he's really taken anti-aging and longevity, and obviously just general health, because of course things that are going to make any of us live longer are still going to be the foundation of that is still going to be the general health, the stuff that we should all follow for general health, regardless of some of the other modalities that he uses, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, he's best known for the much more controversial stuff, which makes sense, and he's gotten a lot of, I'd say, heat, pushback again from the mainstream. Well, again, he basically uses everything under the sun. Uh, Young blood transfer, various medications like rapamycin, red light therapy, I assume ozone, hormones, you name it, GH, he's using it all. He's got the money for it. And the stuff that the media and, let's say, some of the criticism, if that's all you know about him, is mostly in that top of his pyramid, that 1% or that 2% or whatever of that stuff that gets all the attention. And I think he also, again, he seems like a smart guy. He's obviously understands, modern marketing and SOE and all that. And I think he's also using that sort of outer fringe stuff that he's also incorporating into driving the interest and driving the traffic and all that. So to that end, he is having these summits, which he calls summits. He's doing them in various cities. And he had one in Miami, and I'm not that far from Miami. And one of the companies that I do some consulting work for, said they had an extra ticket and asked if I would like it. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? I haven't been to Miami in a while, and I thought it might be interesting. I know Bryan Johnson is. I'm not, that deep or that familiar with all of his recommendations and all the stuff that he recommends. I have watched some of his videos on his YouTube channel. That's really mostly where I've gotten my information from him, because again, I'm obviously very used to and aware of how poorly the media and how poorly those with an agenda and such can represent somebody. And so I'm really just going to try to go right to their source and get the information from them. I know very little of Bryan Johnson from third parties or how they represent him, because I know, again, they tend to sort of focus on the most outrageous stuff, trying to get people to be most reactive, most responsive stuff. So I did go. People had asked me about him. What do you think of him? I do see his ads pop up on Facebook occasionally and stuff. So I did take some time, especially before knowing I was going to go to his event. I did go and watch some of his videos and all that, so that I could get a much better sense of who he is and where he's coming from. and what his overall message is. Because there are a lot of now health influencers out there, as we all know, who promote a lot of real garbage information. I would say most of it. Again, promoting foundational information that is fairly well accepted, let's say among the general medical scientific community, is mostly considered, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's not the way you sell programs and diets and stuff to people. So you got to come out with outrageous stuff. Again, right now we've got a big run on the carnivore diet, which in a sense almost replaced the keto diet, but the keto diet hasn't gone away either. Obviously, carnivore diet can, of course, be de facto ketogenic, but that's a whole other topic. I do have a short video on my thoughts on the carnivore diet too here if you're interested. Anyway, my point being that I did want to get a good sense of who he is and where he's coming from and all that. Now, going to his summit, going to his seminar, which is a couple days long in Miami, I'm not really the target market for it. And so, I'm someone who's been doing this a long time. I have an extensive science background. I'm pretty deep into this topic. And so I was not going with an expectation that I was going to learn a lot. This is not a science conference. The target market for this, for I'll call it a conference, but a summit like this, is probably the interested lay person who's, wants to know more, wants to get good information they can use, they can utilize, which is great, But again, I went with the expectation that I wasn't expecting to learn much in terms of high-level science-based information. So maybe that's a good thing, So once you got there, good turnout, a lot of people there. I would say a couple thousand people. I have some video and some photos. I'll put it up, and we'll go through it a little bit so you guys can get a sense. I did get some video. So, it's funny. When I go to like conferences and shows and stuff, obviously it shows the generation I'm from and stuff. I forget to think of getting videos and photos. Today, there's a joke there's a meme out there, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon and came back with, 5 pictures. Somebody goes to the bathroom and posts 150 pictures on TikTok today. So, but one thing I am guilty of is I'll go to a show or a conference or whatever and come back with like no pictures and stuff. So I did at least make sure to get some decent photos and a couple of videos.
Getting sick. Also, respiratory rate. This is a good one for metabolic rate. The lower your respiratory rate, the more your metabolic rate is going down. So, for example, if you're going through a period of like caloric restriction, you're trying to do some longevity interventions, you'll see your respiratory rate go down. Almost all of these different devices have a readiness score. I pretty much throw them out the window. I'd rather look at the actual numbers themselves rather than the readiness score because I don't even know how they calculate the thing. One other thing I want to talk about is looking at the actual heart rate and heart variability graphs. If you can get these on your device, this can be really helpful. So we've got resting heart rate on the top. On the left is a good night of sleep. On the right is a bad night of sleep. What you'll notice is on
there was also an expo with a handful of companies, I don't know, 20, 30 companies, which I walked around. I've got a little bit of video of that too, and I'll go through a couple of those too. A good turnout. I mean, I think as far as an expo, remember this is a new thing that he's doing, and I think I think these are companies he's kind of teamed up with. I think he has some specific relationship with. I don't know if all the companies, but most of the companies there, I believe he either uses their product or has some sort of a reciprocal arrangement with. But the companies I walked around the little expo there and talked to people, and most of them I liked. Most of them I thought were valued companies. I mean, there was one company there that sold what was their name? I got some of their. Of course, I came back with a whole bag full of stuff, but there was one company that did barometric pressure type machines, oxygen, where you can increase tissue oxygenation. There were labs there that would also both either take your blood and run a whole bunch of really interesting tests that are unusual, or if not, almost never ordered by doctors. There was a company there that would do the opposite. Instead of taking blood out, they would put a bag of something in. Might be NAD, might be vitamin C, might be glutathione. I have some video of that. So overall, I thought the expo was good. I thought some of the companies were interesting. As always, I mean, again, the companies, the people that were there, the attendees and the companies and stuff were not of a high level science. So the people that were there were more salespeople. There's going to be a little more sales oriented, marketing oriented lingo and stuff. So again, you got to take some of that with a grain of salt. But I didn't see anything that was like, over the top and made me roll my eyes. And as somebody who's been a I hope fairly well known consumer advocate for all this time, I was pleasantly surprised to see that because there could have been a bunch of nonsense, healing crystals and magnetic bracelet companies there and that type of thing, which I would not be happy with. So, summit wise, as far as the actual talks, the discussions were really very grounded. I don't want to say basic stuff to sound negative, but foundational stuff as far as their whole section on the importance of sleep. The other thing in terms of the as far as the segments, the talks that they did, that there was also other people. It wasn't just him talking. He had some scientists there. He had a medical doctor he works with. That type of thing, who were talking with him, who would fill in with maybe some more details, studies. But for example, like say, one talk was on the importance of sleep. But more than just that, talking about REM sleep, how to get there, all manner of ways of not just studies on the value of sleep, on the effects of anti-aging in sleep. For example, what adequate sleep does to something called telomeres. Telomeres are something that are in your cell that indicate the aging of cells, and that's a whole other discussion. But so there was some details, some science-based stuff that was there. I think enough to at least give people a sense of that that Bryan and his crew do look into the science of it. Now, Bryan himself is not a scientist; he's a tech guy, but he does seem to have done a pretty good job of at least self-educating himself and surrounding himself with people that know what's going on. So the other segment, of course, with this again foundational stuff, exercise. Did a nice job again of explaining not just how obviously important exercise is for aging, but going through different types of exercise and explaining things like HIIT and heart rate variable training and going through the science and all that. So the talks themselves were really pretty basic, but not in a negative way. I think the focus of this summit, if from my takeaway, was that Bryan and his company and co are really again trying to impress on people the foundational basics that you really have to incorporate no matter what other stuff you want to do. And this is actually, I thought that was a benefit. I've been to a lot of conferences, a lot of scientific conferences, a lot of anti-aging conferences, medical conferences, and all that. And for the most part, it's especially like an anti-aging conference. It's usually, very segmented into these very narrow treatments or something. It's whatever the scientist or the, researcher or whatever, or the medical doctor, sort of what their baby is and what they want to talk about. And what I hate to say this, but what they want to market, what they might want to sell. And so they're often very segmented into very specific, narrow topics. Sometimes they're very technical, sometimes they're not. What I thought was actually commendable to Bryan again is that the goal of this talk was really how to impress on people how important getting all these important basics in place are. Gave, I thought, a good structure, again, how people can incorporate it. There was a lot of good actionable advice. Again, it wasn't just sort of rarefied studies this and studies that. So again, I think the target market was people that are obviously interested, probably obviously already, live a fairly healthy, fit lifestyle, want to hone it, want to target it some more. The nutrition segment was good. He does like to do like intermittent fasting. I am, that's a topic for another day. I have my criticism of intermittent fasting. Some of it, I think, again, we could debate the value of intermittent fasting in terms of how good the science is and all that. But regardless, I would say again, the basics of his advice on nutrition was solid. It was not, trying to explain to people, recommend to people extreme eating patterns or extreme food choices or anything like that. I thought it was really pretty good. Now, and there was a pretty minimal, really a very minimal talk or recommendation on supplements, which I know he takes a lot of supplements. I think, if anything, he might even probably could have valued from additional discussion, honestly, on supplements. Now, he owns a supplement company. One of the Blueprint, I think it's called. One of the big booths in the Expo, as you'd expect, was that supplement company. And like I say, to his credit, this could have been a whole summit or a whole talk on pushing supplements and pushing his supplements. And to his credit, he didn't do that. If anything, he might even been maybe a little under what I think he could have justified, frankly, in his recommendations, or at least discussion on supplements. Honestly, if it was my talk, I think I would have probably had a little more discussion on supplements and what I take and all that. I also thought that they did a nice job on Q&A. A lot of times, again, you go to one of these talks and there's very minimal Q&A. It's pretty much just one or two questions, if that, and again, the researcher, or the medical doctor or a fitness guru or whatever just kind of wants to bang through it and get through it, and you don't get a sense that they, if they allow Q&A at all, you don't really get the sense that they value Q&A. And that's something I personally, when I do seminars and stuff, I try to get through my talks as fast as I can to get to the Q&A part. I like Q&A. I do my best in Q&A, and I think people really appreciate that. And I again, credit where it's due. I think the Q&A part was clearly set aside for people to have the sense that Q&A was encouraged and they were going to give time to it. And again, I give credit there to that. I thought that was pretty good. In between the talks, there was like these little 5-10 minute sort of exercise programming things. Like somebody would come out and they would do breathing techniques or breathing session, 5 minutes of that. The next, they'd have another talk. Another person would come out and do a little yoga stretch kind of thing. I thought that was kind of cool. Again, what he was trying to do was incorporate within what could have just been an all-day sitting session. Was trying to incorporate sort of real world practical balancing between the sitting and the talking and the learning, and doing a little something physical to loosen you up. Other stuff, there's a whole talk on the value and the importance of community. Now, this could sound like really, to somebody listening to me or whatever, they might sound thinking that's really lame. But I don't think, again, especially in the Western world, different cultures, especially the U.S., understand or appreciate how important community is to your living longer. This has been established very, very well, and it's ignored because it's kind of boring. It's hard. People sort of go, yeah, sure, I know that, and they put it aside. But again, every time you look at things like blue zone groups, Okinawa, places where they talk about where people live to, common lived over 100, that the fact that these people have a community, that the family or that the older population is valued, and these people have an interaction, is always stressed as part of the formula as to why they live so long. And what happens is, again, people just want to zone in on the dietary part, or even some nutrient, inside the dietary part to, sound important, sell a product or book or whatever. And again, I thought that was a important segment that was nicely done. It was nicely handled. I again, credit where it's due. I've been to many a seminar and a conference and an industry show and whatever, and I don't recall anyone actually doing an entire segment on the value and the importance of community and whatever, again, how to find it, the value of it, the science behind it. Again, community means different things to different people, But the reality is, especially in our modern world, I would say especially in the U.S., we are very isolated. People have less community than ever. It is showing itself statistically in stress and depression and anxiety and so on and so forth. So, good job. So, with that, again, we didn't. He never really stresses or gets into any real talk about the stuff that he's so controversial for. Or he doesn't, recommend or get into any depth of the various drugs and the hormones and blood transfer and all that he uses. Now, maybe he did. There was a VIP get together and stuff that I didn't have a ticket for. I just had a basic general entry ticket. Maybe there's some talk there. Maybe there was more one-on-one where people had more of an in-depth conversation with him about that stuff. I don't know. I didn't have the VIP ticket, so I can't say that I went to everything that he was offered that maybe I wasn't exposed to. But I will say, for those, I'm assuming the vast majority of people were there had the general admission ticket, which was Expo, going to the full day of talks, lunch, good lunch, and all that. Got a T-shirt, all that goodness. So again, I didn't really know where, if at all, he was going to get into that. But again, he didn't seem to. I would say that the mission of this talk was to put together an overall foundational plan that most people can follow, can have actionable information they can put to good use from that talk. Not just leave with a head full of intellectual stuff, but leave with an action plan to make their lives better, to be healthier, and move forward with it. So that, I think, is what I think is the goal of his summits. And so value. This is a tough one. I mean, this is very subjective. This was not inexpensive. I got a ticket, but the 1 day general ticket, without VIP stuff, with all that, was like, I looked it up. It's like $275. Another like $40 for parking. So this is not an inexpensive day. I mean, this is, for a person that's driving down there and you stop for breakfast or whatever, you're probably looking around a $300 day, give or take. So value-wise, I think a lot of that would depend on, in some respects, where you were starting from. Again, I was not the target market. I knew that. I'm okay with that. So I went more as somebody who's in the business of anti-aging and longevity and research and nutrition and supplements. So I went from that perspective as an industry person to experience, what is this guy doing? Why is he getting all this attention? And it wasn't, an hour drive for me or whatever it was. So I figured, why not? And again, I think from that perspective, I didn't go expecting to pull a lot from it, and I didn't. But I do think the average person who has some knowledge, like I say, unfortunately, the good old internet, could you find most of what he was talking about online if you took the time? Yeah, you probably could find him. In fact, you could find most of what he recommended and stuff on his own YouTube channel, frankly. But you'd have to take the time and you'd have to dig through it and piece it together. And I think that the goal of his seminar, or his summit, is again was to really put it all together for people in a single experience, in a single day, that they can take away. And no matter, in the end of the day, I will say that, and this message I like, because it's one that I say myself. There's no supplement, there's no magic bullet, there's no magic pill or hormone or whatever that is going to bypass those foundational basics that you have to have in place for that other thing you may employ to work, to help you out. You're not going to bypass bad diet and lack of exercise, poor posture. In fact, he had a whole section on posture, which is important. You're not going to bypass ignoring all of that stuff with a magic pill or a single hormone or whatever. That other stuff, let's say you've got all the foundational stuff that you should be doing in place, and you then want to explore rapamycin, GH, TRT, blood transfer. There's a lot we could go down that. That's all that, that's only going to be additive to the foundational stuff. You're probably going to account for 90% or better of your longevity and your lack of disease and your functionality doing all that quote unquote boring foundational stuff. Now, the science of anti-aging and longevity and all that is progressing at lightning speed. There is a biomedical revolution going on in this area that most people just can't really appreciate. And there's a lot of money in it now. So, yes, we are actually getting closer to magic pills that may, in fact, literally mimic exercise and do all sorts of things. I think we're probably still 10 or 20 years away in terms of like not needing to do that other stuff at all. But as far as certainly we already have drugs, we already have meds, we already have supplements, we already have other modalities that if you are doing all the right things you should be doing, these things will help, should help. I'm going to say should help. Data depends on what we're talking about here. Should help reduce disease rates, maybe improve longevity a bit, improve or at least decrease frailness, functionality, mobility, all that. And that's only still going to account for a fairly small percent. So that's my report. If you have any comments, questions, ask below. I'll try to answer it. Again, I think for a fairly large percentage of people, this is not a waste of your time. I think if it comes to your city and you watch some of his videos and you realize that he's not promoting or showing up just to promote some totally fringe thing or whatever. He's teaching good basic stuff you can take home and use. I give it a thumbs up for that. I know again people will obviously question his motivations here, and all that. My genuine sense is that he's doing this because he genuinely wants to get the word out and promote health and fitness, and longevity and anti-aging and all that. And on his own personal quest, obviously he wants to live. If you watch his, videos, his Netflix, I mean, he's trying to really push the outer edge of what longevity science and anti-aging can offer him. And he wants to live as people like Ray Kurzweil and, Bill Falloon and a bunch of other people want to live a whole lot longer than the typical human lifespan allows. And that's what he's up to. My understanding is, he doesn't need the money. That's my understanding. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt as to what his motivations are for doing all this. You can watch her and see what you think. Anyway, that's my report, and see you guys on the Brink Zone, and Brink Zone out.